coronavirus lessons. This lesson is on education. One of the areas that has been significantly impacted. And I think I want to share some insights as to what we can, could, and probably even should do. You know, we first need to begin by admitting that, listen, we had no plans for dealing with this. What people are calling online teaching was really just emergency survival response. Nobody knew what they were doing. They just, okay, yes, we have an internet and yes, we can access things. So let's just try and figure out a way to do it. But that really, if we're to be honest with ourselves, it didn't really work. And a lot of people, a lot of things were undone. A lot of things that should have been done did not take place. Now, we're now a year plus into the pandemic, and we're beginning to think, no, what next? What do we do now? A lot of parents have serious concerns about getting back into the classroom. Is it safe? Can we do it now? A lot of students have opted out of the educational system and opted into the workforce because, look, the family needed to survive, and so students found a way to help. And many will not want to go back to this boring thing called education. There are also students who have been disengaged. The whole remote learning experience has frustrated them, causing them to even more disengage in the learning process. So we have a number of problems to contend with. Again, if we're to be honest and truthful, during the experience of what we're calling the remote learning, a lot of students lacked devices. The internet access was spotty. Some students had none. Some students had very unreliable internet. For many, there was inadequate parental support. One study showed that the majority of students, their mothers were the ones that helped them with their remote learning. But that's between the time when she was trying to get her own work done. So a lot of students were not properly supported during this time. So what do we do now? Do we adjust the school calendar? Do we figure that, look, we have lost the entire year? Can we afford to do that with all the problems that cause? Do we expand summer school and we start a summer school program very early and just believe we'll use the next 2 summers to play catch up? Do we start the 2021 school year early? What about a teacher's contract? We're going to be asking teachers to do something very different than they did before. Are we prepared to start to renegotiate those contracts? What about parental involvement? We know that the whole educational process is a interaction between parent and teacher and school. Do we have to re-engage the parents? What about the student motivation? Are we prepared to step this up to see if we can find new ways of getting this done? Well, what I'd like to say, welcome to the future. The coronavirus pandemic has leapfrogged us into the future of education. We can't now start talking about the future of online learning because it is here. The process of digital learning started to take off in the early 1990s, where persons started to see ways and means of how we can integrate the educational process, with the school process and the television and the internet. We started seeing the signs of it in the early 1990s. In fact, the word e-learning was first used in 1998. So it became into full effect. Since 2000, there's been a 900+% growth in the e-learning industry. So the pieces are falling into place, I should say, beyond our expectations. I think this is the time for the rise of the master e-teacher. the master e-teacher. It is time for us to separate the pedagogy and content that education provides from the social and emotional aspect of education, especially in the K through 12 stages. Because everyone has to get as much as possible of the same components, especially from the content, K to 12. Now's our chance to get it right. In many places, there's a serious disconnect in terms of how many students, what proportion actually get adequate grounding in that K to 12 period. Education has gone through two main stages so far, and it's time for the third. We transition from the sage on the stage to the guide by the side. It's now time to make the next step. I call this star time, whereby the teacher has to become a star, a media star. Teachers now need an online persona, very different from the persona that most teachers had in the classroom, largely dull and boring. There are a few who could take their persona straight to online, but the majority of teachers can't do that. So we now need a brand new teaching persona. How do you interact with the entire class while engaging individual students through a screen? How do you do that? How do you use emoticons, animations, graphics, all of these things to augment the learning process? Teachers have a lot to learn from stand-up comics. Those persons who can stand in front of an audience with just a microphone for 1, for 2, for 3 hours. What about storytellers? What about actors? Teachers need to learn things from these individuals. We now need significant pre-production components of the educational process that will bring the information to light so we can find ways of presenting it. The reality is that most teachers were not trained for what we're now asking them to do. Most teachers are not prepared. So I see the future of education as a hybrid, predominantly online, but we still need the face-to-face component. What I envision, the core informational component, we can find a way to deliver it online, deliver it by remote means, and all kinds of configurations are possible. I also believe that the global informational giants such as Google, they will take the lead because they already have the platforms. So we have to just watch what they're doing and see how we can be a part of that same process too, because they will be doing so. And if we watch them, we work with them, we can save ourselves a lot of money in doing so. The common curriculum, math and English, that is a universal construct. Who does it best? Where can we get this? How can we bring it into our system? That's what it's about. But each country now would have to develop its own packages as it relates to history, social studies, geography, the things that are specific and peculiar to your culture. We need to start developing those things now. So, the very important issue now is that national broadband. The same way we develop physical highway, the internet highway is now something of national importance. It must be possible for us to reach all our students with consistent and reliable broadband in order to deliver the curriculum. If we don't, we're going to be leaving a lot of students behind. So we now see the rise of the broadcaster master teacher. The broadcaster master teacher. And we need the production facilities for streamlining and streamlining the process so that all institutions can get the material stream. They can also store it so that they can deliver it at different times. So all of that can be worked out. What we need, an educational broadcast commission that will curate, that will license, that will produce educational content material for all levels, for all subjects. We can now have this content available on demand. We can also reach out and start to export the content that we produce to similar cultures. If we do not produce for ourselves and also try to reach out, we run the risk of educational colonization and cultural imperialism, because the big players will be willing, ready, and able to produce all our educational material. We can't afford that. What we will now do now, in addition to the broadband delivered component of education, is now having a lot of the other teachers now augmenting the process as a tutor. They will provide that tutorial face-to-face component. So we're seeing a brand new process. What does this mean, folks? There's no going back. It's time to leap into the future with education. We can do it. In fact, we have no choice but to do it, because it's the only way forward. Education.